Hey everybody! I'm coming to you live in a sweatshirt, and there is a reason why I'm doing that. But first, my name is Roddia Paul. I am the co-host or co-facilitator of our Rich and Wellness workshops from our PGCPS Externs. So welcome, welcome, welcome. If this is your first time, thank you so much. If you're coming back, I am coming to you in my sweatshirt because I'm here to talk about self-acceptance. And self acceptance is about meeting yourself where you are at all times. And today, I didn't feel like getting dressed up to come and talk to you all because we're family. And I didn't have it in me today. So I told myself, wear your sweatshirt, accept yourself for where you are today and how you feel today. And they're going to understand because you are being honest, you are being open, and I'm right here with you. Everything we talk about every week, I'm learning, I'm growing with you all. So we're going to talk about self-acceptance. We're going to continue this series on self. Ultimately, what we're really talking about here is, self-love. But in doing so, on our journey to unpacking why self-love is important to our wellness, we are literally breaking through the different aspects of self. So last week, Shola, who's my co-facilitator, talked to you all about self-reflection. And that's super important to what we're about to talk to today because it goes into self-acceptance. So self-acceptance, what is that, right? Everyone has their own definition of this. But if I had to say what I thought self-acceptance was, I would say that self-acceptance is being okay, with your strengths, with your challenges, with your talents, with the things you aren't so good at, with your up days, with your down days, with the positives, with the negatives that you feel of yourself, being okay, with who you are, and we are all so layered and so complex. So there's a lot that goes into who we are. So sometimes it's a lot to be okay with, right? But understanding who you are, understanding your experience and accepting that, right? Not allowing the thoughts or the criticisms of others to make you ostracize yourself or components of yourself. That would be having self-acceptance, which is really important in the society in which we live in. Social media, music, everything, I feel like really dictates, why we should feel good about ourselves or what should, be something good to feel about yourself, right? And so I think it's important to choose for yourself what those things are, right? And it's important to talk about really briefly self-esteem because I think a lot of times people, they confuse self-acceptance and self-esteem, and they're completely different, One is internal self-acceptance and one is external self-esteem, right? So our self-esteem is usually created by the way we feel others appreciate us, right? By the tangible things we're able to produce and be successful at in the world is usually what builds our self-esteem, right? So people complimenting us, people acknowledging our hard work, us setting a goal and meeting a goal, us being good in our field, us getting degrees, us being great partners, great siblings, great teachers, everything that we can do that can be acknowledged in the physical world, right? Outside of us, externally, that builds our self-esteem. You can have all of those things, y'all, and still have zero self-acceptance because our self-acceptance is about the intangible things internally, right? It's about the things we cannot change and being able to sit with them and say, it's okay. I love myself regardless of this, of that, of this, right? And so that's important to think about, right? Because the self-acceptance comes from us. That means even if we do not get the praise from other people, we do not get the promotion, we do not reap the benefits of a goal we're trying to meet, even if we don't get all of those things that build our self-esteem, we're still okay with who we are. That's self-acceptance, right? Now, what does this have to do with wellness? Well, of course, I'm going to tell you guys. So our self-acceptance really impacts our wellness because one of the main things that self-acceptance does is it lowers our stress, it lowers our anxiety, and it lowers our depression. Let me say, if you're unable to accept that there are certain things that you can't change, certain things that you can't control, your stress is going to be high, right? Because you're going to keep having a fixation, keep having anxiety, keep feeling distress about things that you literally cannot change. And all you could do to maintain your control on them is to accept them and say, but I'm still going to do me, right? So when we decide to do that, accept the things we cannot change and work hard to change what we can, we are going to lower our stress. We're going to lower our chances of anxiety, lower our chances of feeling depressed, and lower our chances of having stress-induced illness or symptoms. So a lot of people that, struggle with self-acceptance, they do have very elevated anxiety, which can then, they also may have migraines, very chronic migraines. They may even not take care of themselves because you're not feeling of your best self. So now you're not taking care of yourself. That may weaken your immune system. There's all these different things that plays into it. And the other thing from our last series that low self-acceptance can impact is our productivity. And we all know productivity really hinders our self-concept. If we feel like we're not being productive, if we're not seeing an outcome and we're putting in all these work, all these hours, that really has a big impact on our emotional well-being and how we see ourselves. So what do? How can you increase your self-acceptance? The number one thing that is important to do to increase your self-acceptance is self-compassion. Practicing self-compassion. Practicing treating yourself how you would like others to treat you, and practice treating yourself how you treat others. If you have all this compassion, all this grace, all this patience, all this understanding for other people, and then when it comes to you and you making mistakes or you feeling challenged or, you falling back into an old habit, you are so hard on yourself. That is not compassion and that is not self-acceptance, right? Another thing that you can do is practice self-regulation. So what does that mean? That means try to regulate how overly critical you are of yourself. We all have an inner critic. Our inner critic is telling us we can't all the time, and it's important to shut that inner critic down as many times as we can. We're going to have days where we can't, but I think that on days where we're able to shut that inner critic down and regulate how much you let, those negative beliefs, those negative thoughts get to you, right? That is showing your self-acceptance. When you regulate those negative thoughts and you think, well, you know what? Even though I had this thought, it doesn't make it true. Practice doing that by saying, is this thought true or not, right? And then last, but not least, you want to practice awareness and reflection. If you're not sure how to do that, I'm not going to go too deep into it because Shola just had a great talk with you all about that last week. So I'm definitely going to have that linked at the end of this video so you can go ahead and click and see what self-awareness and self-reflection is, right? And all of this, doing all of these things, even if you can't do all of them, start with one. But each of these things is about centering your personal growth. When you choose to center your personal growth, because we're always growing, guys, when we choose to center that, we are on the journey to self-acceptance, right? So I want to challenge you all this week to a journal activity to list 3 ways that you can show yourself acceptance, right? So that can either be listing 1 way to show yourself compassion, 1 way to show yourself self-regulation, and 1 way to show yourself self-reflection. Or you can do 3 of one of these. If it's too much to think of all of them, try 3 ways to show yourself self-compassion, right? And I think that that's really important. So some examples. If I had to say 3 ways to show myself self-compassion. 1, being okay with the fact that sometimes I'm going to not finish everything on my to-do list, which is hard for me to think about sometimes. I make a to-do list and then I realize the end of the days come and I don't get to everything on there. Being compassionate to understand that sometimes things take me longer than I thought. It doesn't mean that I wasn't productive today. So I can show myself compassion by looking at everything I've completed today and say, well, it's okay. The work can always get done tomorrow. That's one good way to show myself self-compassion. Another way to show myself self-compassion is to give myself, some patience. Give myself some grace. Give myself some understanding, right? I'm a full-time doctoral student. If you guys didn't know that about Shola and I, we are both full-time in our doctoral program. And there are some days where I just can't do homework. I can't pay attention in class. I can't think. I'm sure you guys all feel that way as students and teachers at home. Give yourself the grace to say it's okay to have a day like that, right? And then the last thing that I might do to show myself some self-compassion is I might just be okay with the fact that I'm in a not so bubbly mood today. So I'm a very bubbly, positive person, but it doesn't mean I'm always that way, right? So if I have a day where I'm just grouchy and I can't stand a single soul today, I don't have to force myself to be fake positive. I don't have to force myself to be fake happy, right? Let yourself feel even the things that don't feel good, right? Even the things that don't feel good to feel. Give yourself the compassion to know you're human and you're allowed to feel those things. So those are some ideas of ways that you can do that. If you want to take my 3, go ahead. But I challenge you to think of your own 3, guys, and really lean into what self-acceptance means for you. And next week, we're going to talk about self-love. We are going to talk about self-love as the last thing, and I think that that's super, super important to talk about. It is a shorter month this month, but I think it's super important to talk about as we wrap all this up. We're going to talk about, what self-love is, why self-love is the connection, to the roadmap of purpose, and we're going to talk about maybe what unconditional love looks like. And that doesn't mean what you think it means. So stay tuned, family. Thank you so, so very much for tuning in. We value you guys every time you're here. We're right here growing with you. Show yourself some grace today if you haven't, and have a day of purpose on purpose. See you guys same time, same place next week.